It was the promise that got everyone talking, right? A vow to finally unseal one of the biggest, darkest secrets in recent history. But what happens when a promise that big just vanishes? Today, we're digging into a story about that pledge, a shocking pivot, and some explosive secrets that just refuse to stay buried. So, this is really the core question we have to ask. I mean, think about it. During the campaign, Donald Trump made releasing the Epstein files a huge issue. It was an absolute slam dunk with his base. So why on earth, after winning the election, would he do a complete 180? And wow, what a U-turn it was. Just look at this. On one side, you've got the campaign trail promise, super clear, repeated over and over. I will declassify the Epstein files. But then, on the other side, you see what happened after the election. All of a sudden, it's a boring issue. It's a hoax. The contrast is just, it's night and day. It practically screams for an explanation. All right, so let's break down how this whole reversal actually went down. Once the 2025 election was in the bag, it was time to deliver, right? But instead of transparency, the Justice Department drops this bombshell announcement. They claimed no client list even existed, so no files were going to be released. And then Trump himself started downplaying the whole thing, saying it was all just a political distraction. Now here's where it gets really interesting. It wasn't just his opponents who noticed. His own base, the people who voted for him, saw the change immediately. And that shift was so sudden that some big-name supporters, folks like Elon Musk, started publicly wondering, what's the only logical reason for this? His own name must be in there. The suspicion wasn't just coming from the outside, it was coming from inside the house. To really get why people were so suspicious, we've got to rewind the clock. Because, this wasn't about two guys who barely knew each other. Trump and Epstein had a long, well-documented history. So what exactly was their relationship like before Epstein became a household name for all the wrong reasons? Just look at this timeline here. We're talking about a friendship that went on for 2 whole decades. It kicked off back in the 80s, and by the 90s, it was serious. Epstein's own staff said they were on the phone at least 3 times a week. I mean, who do you talk to 3 times a week? Then you fast forward to 2002, and there's Trump praising Epstein in magazine interviews. This was no casual acquaintance. This was a deep, long-term bond. And this really paints the picture of the world they lived in together. Their friendship wasn't just phone calls. It played out in the most exclusive places you can imagine. Trump's casinos, Epstein's gigantic mansions, private jets, parties with the richest and most famous people on the planet. They were a core part of each other's elite social scene. And if you need any more proof of just how warm their relationship was, well, listen to this. In a copy of his book that he signed for Epstein, Trump wrote, "To Jeff, you are the greatest." That simple little line, it speaks volumes about where things stood between them back then. But, from inside that world of extreme luxury and power, some really disturbing stories started to leak out. Stories that painted a much, much darker picture of their friendship. This here is a first-hand account from a model named Stacey Williams. She says that back in 1993 at Trump Tower, Trump assaulted her while Epstein just stood there and watched. She said Epstein actually seemed to enjoy it, like he was proud a model he knew was getting attention from Trump. I mean, that's a direct testimony that puts both men right there at the scene of an alleged crime. And look, the idea that Trump was somehow totally in the dark about Epstein's activities, well, that narrative kind of falls apart when you hear what Trump himself had to say years before the whole scandal exploded. There it is. In his own words, from a 2002 magazine interview, Trump himself said that Epstein likes women on the younger side. And this quote is just so critical because it proves he was aware of what Epstein was into long before it ever became a criminal investigation. So despite the administration's pivot, the public pressure just kept building and building until it hit a fever pitch. It got so intense that Congress was forced to step in. And in a moment you almost never see, Democrats and Republicans actually came together and passed a bill forcing the files to be released. Trump had no choice but to sign it. And so in December of 2025, it finally happened. Over 30,000 documents were made public. A lot of people were excited, thinking this would be the final word on who was involved. But the reality of what was inside, and more importantly, what was still hidden, was way more complicated. The very first thing everybody noticed were the redactions. Just page after page of thick black bars, hiding everything, names, dates, places.
It made key sentences completely useless. It was like getting a puzzle with 90% of the pieces missing. Just enough information to make you curious, but hiding every single thing that mattered.
But even with all those black bars, investigators started finding things, and some of it was just explosive. First, they learned Trump flew on Epstein's private jet 8 separate times. Then, an email from Epstein himself surfaced claiming Trump knew about the girls. And then, maybe the most shocking find, an FBI call log describing a rape allegation from 1999 against both men, plus a letter, supposedly from Epstein, talking about their shared love for young ladies. So what was the official response to all of these bombshells? Well, it came fast. The Justice Department just called the allegations untrue and the letter a fake. End of story. But here's the crucial part. They did it without releasing any kind of report or evidence to back it up. They basically just asked the public to take their word for it, which, as you can imagine, raised a lot of eyebrows. And that brings us to where we are now. Because even with everything that has come out, this story is not over. Not by a long shot. What's been released really feels like just the tiny, visible tip of a very, very big and dark iceberg. Just let this number sink in for a second. Over 1 million documents related to this case are still unreleased. 1 million! The official reason is that they're still being processed and redacted, but wow, the sheer amount of information still being kept hidden is absolutely staggering. And to make it all even more bizarre, the redaction job on the documents we do have is shockingly bad. Like in some cases, people have found you can reveal the hidden text just by copying and pasting it into another document. It makes you wonder, right? Is the secrecy on purpose, or is this just complete incompetence? So that's really the question we're left with. We've got these major bombshells coming out of the tiny fraction of files that were released and from sloppy redaction work. It really forces you to ask, if this is the kind of stuff that just slipped through the cracks, what earth-shattering information is still locked away in those million-plus files that are still hidden from all of us, deep in the dark?